holier than thou interviews you see after the matches, you know, that's not how he carries on. You know, that wouldn't have been his demeanour inside, and that I think rubbed off on the players in an awful way. I'm just speaking my mind here, and I know if you interviewed 99% of the players. I was actually sitting behind this Leinster supporter, decked out in the full gear, brown Thomas bag in hand, pint of Heineken, and he was you're stereotypical now. And in Vum, surrounded the car, someone's talking through a mic, turn off the ignition, put the keys on the roof. So I'm like, oh jeez, how are we going to get out of this one? So I'm looking over at Jonesy and Bazu, I go, oh my god. So I'm keys up on the roof, guard comes over them with the light. He looks at me and he looks in at Jones and he's like, he's serious.
Okay, we're back, Dave. Episode 4, we've 3 down, and you're here dressed a lot better than you were the first 3 episodes.
Thanks, Lukey, appreciate it. I'll have to get you the Louis Copeland sponsorship now as well next. Just coming from work, so.
Exactly, yeah, and that's the other job, the other part of your life now. Gone are the days of arriving in shorts and a jersey to work, and I suppose now you've taken on another adventure into the more 9 to 5 life.
9 to half 5, Lukey, get it right. No, this is the real job now. Unfortunately, this is number 1, kid. I finished, finished last year, and I did a course in UL in aircraft leasing and finance. Look, I suppose I had time to plan it out, getting to the age that I was, and with after the World Cup and the injury, I had time to plan, and just from talking to a lot of people, this was the industry I'd always wanted to get into, and UL were very accommodating towards me. I was able to do the course down there, and I started in the company Ergo Capital there in Ballsbridge. So in there now, this is my 5th week in there, so absolutely loving it in there. The people are great, been very helpful, great industry, and just trying to get better every day in there.
So we're going to use this episode as a bit of a get to know you a little bit better. So we've obviously had Murray on first episode, Zebo,
exciting,
the amazing Brent Pope
experience,
and now we're going to break down the barriers on Dave Kilcoyne.
Best ever. Let's go. What do you want to know?
So Dave, I want to bring you back to the start of the journey. I know a lot of people, when they think of you in the green jersey, playing for Ireland at World Cups, winning URC titles with Munster, but that just doesn't happen overnight. What's your earliest memories of picking up a rugby ball?
Well, I started out with UL Bows, was my local club. Joined there under 8s. I think that's, if you trace back any lads playing with Ireland, they've memories of where they started, and that's where it all started for me. My dad was UL Bows, my brothers, so it was only natural I was going to go out there. We had a very good under-20s teams. We ended up winning 2 All-Irelands, and that kind of kick-started everything in terms of getting into sub-academies and academies, and went to Ardscoil then. We won a junior cup, and I suppose in 4th year it kind of really kicked on. The team in 2nd year had won a junior cup, and I didn't make the team. I was probably a little bit small, and then in 3rd year I got a mammoth growth spurt. So I think Alan went off board, and so I was getting the double portion at home in the house. And then in 4th year ended up playing hooker in 4th year in school, and then back to the back row in 5th year, and 6th year then pushed into the front row, back to prop. So that's where it all kind of started. So
a proud Limerick man, was there ever the temptation to go into the GAA, bit of hurling, or are you just a spectator?
No, we'd be hurling mad. I played the whole way up. We played at All Christians back home. Alan was involved in a very good Limerick under-21s team. I think they won the All-Ireland actually. Timmy Hoolans was in goals. So hurling was always in the family. I'd go to every hurling game. I can be a massive supporter of them. Actually great friends with Seamus Flanagan. Struck up a friendship there over the years, and haven't looked back since. We roomed together at EP up at during the summer, and our tent blew down, so we'll be getting on to EP to get us another tent for next year.
You were definitely a glamping kind of guy though, were you?
100% glamping.
I knew you would have been.
Yeah. When I said tent, glamping pod. Yeah. But no, look, I'd be good. Know a lot of them. Went to school with a number of them. Went to my school, and massive respect for what they've done for the city, and they're brilliant ambassadors for the city. And what they've done over the last number of years has been incredible.
You mentioned your school days playing rugby. Were you always stand out, first teams, one of the first names on the team sheet? Or I know you're saying about the growth spurt. Was this something that kind of just transitioned afterwards? Or were you always at strong, juvenile level, minis, youth and stuff as well?
Well, I used to be saying number one in the programme, number one in your heart. I was always, the main man, first name on the team sheet. That's how I used to always view it, yeah. I was always, in my head anyway, whatever way you want to phrase it. But I would have always, I suppose, been a main player in a team underage. From fourth year on, it's funny, in second year, I didn't make I was on the bench for the Junior Cup, and I didn't even make the bench for the final. And I think that created a spark, when you missed out, and it was the first time the Ardscoil had ever won the Junior Cup. And the following year then, I trained like an animal. I remember that summer. I was so, you're so bitter at that age for missing out. And my brother had just broke his knee, jumping off a cliff in Kilkee. And he'd, a year or two before, and he'd really concentrated on the gym and training, and he used to bring me along with him. And then I remember we used to be watching Rocky at home, this kind of mad stuff. And we had a gym in our old house in Ballinacurra, and we'd go up there every day after school, training, and I owe a lot of it down to him. And then the third year, that's when it really kicked on for me. I ended up captaining the school that Junior Cup, and we lost in the final to John Ryan. He was propping that day. He let me know most weeks inside in Munster, but that's where it kind of kicked off.
And then you were part of this generation that really came through at Munster and almost all together. You mentioned obviously with the Murray episode, living together and watching him progress, a couple of years beforehand, and then really your baptism of fire with Munster. Interpro game for your debut?
Yeah, it was Connacht in Thomond Park. It was actually John Hayes' last game was my first game, so I thought the big standing ovation was for me coming on, but that's what I tell everyone else anyway. But it was John, and then there was only one prop on the bench, and Rob Penny then came in the following year. That was 2011. We actually won the Magnus League that year. And then 2012, Rob Penny came in, who was a brilliant coach. I felt way ahead of his time. I don't know if we mentioned this in the last episode. I haven't even listened to them back. I'm just listening to all the rave reviews that we're getting. Rob Penny came in, and he was just a real forward thinker. We used to play that pack shape 2-4-2, and he took a bit of a shine into me. And actually, he didn't really. I suppose because Marcus was down to start the first game. Marcus Horns is actually my cousin, and he went down with a back spasm. So I ended up starting. And I think that was Marcus's last game. I ended up starting for the season, so I always say I retired my cousin. So I say Mark's inside now, and Mark's be a great buddy of mine now. He's doing great work with Rugby Players Ireland. But I always say it's good to keep it in the family. We've kept it there for 20 odd years, so it was a good innings from us.
You have played with so many different players over the years, so many characters as well. And I suppose from the outside looking in, as a rugby fan, you see all these, big household names and everything. But who are the biggest characters? Like when you think back of your days in the change room from Munster and Irish years, who are the characters, the ones who brought the change room to life, who had big impressions on you in terms of, getting you going every day as well?
I know I've mentioned him in the last episode, but look, Paulie was one I gravitated towards a lot because I grew up and he was a hero of mine. And then I ended up, traveling days to train with him, and I became great friends with him, and I admired him so much. And then you're teammates with him for years, and you see how hard he works. And then we ended up training together, and he loved weights training. I love weights training, and we just struck up a big friendship. And first of all, he had that, the Paul O'Connell. So obviously there's that kind of a character or presence. And then I think of someone like with Ireland, like a Sean Cronin, who's just, even if you chat to the Leinster lads, he was head of the fines committee up there, and he was just another brilliant character. There was loads of brilliant characters. I think I was in a WhatsApp group before with me, Sean Cronin, Fergus McFadden, and I think Paul O'Connell could have been in it as well at some stage, but I think he's out of all them WhatsApp groups now, probably for better. But yeah, there's loads. It's very hard to pick, one or two.
What's the fines like? I came across a video of you. I think it could have been from the last World Cup, and I think you were on the fines committee. How do you get put on the fines committee?
Well, generally, I probably would have been committing most of the fines. So I thought, how am I going? The best way to do this is be the one orchestrating the. Why be the on the jury when you can be the judge? So I appointed myself the judge in most of these things. And that was kind of my role the whole way up. I generally was kind of head of those MC events or MC in a bus or head of a fines committee, that kind of thing. So tried to rule with absolute power. And
what's some of those rules that you see? Like, is it just late to meetings, late to trainings, or is there more like wearing the wrong clothes, wearing the wrong training gear?
There's all that, but you know what? It's and I have to be like, in all my time with Munster and Ireland, particularly Ireland, especially over the latter years, obviously when I was younger, you could probably count in one hand the amount of times, I'm just thinking me personally late, but we just weren't late. It's not a done thing, or even teammates. It's just, if you go into Munster, there's no one really late for meetings, or you go into Ireland, there's no one ever really late for meetings. You get the odd Zebo with a pair of sneakers or a mad t-shirt or a Bundy, but that's just their personality, and different coaches would be stricter on different things. You look at someone like a Faz, he likes people being themselves, and he's not too worried if a lad's wearing a backwards hat going to a meeting. But it'd be I think that's one thing about the Irish. They're a very, I wouldn't say strict, but they generally do the right thing always. Standards would be the word I'm looking for. Standards would be very high within, and I guarantee if you go amongst all the provinces, it's the same. I don't think it was ever really a big issue.
When you spoke openly about Rob Penny and him coming into Munster as well, you would have been quite young then as well, wouldn't you? And I suppose, what are the dynamics like between a young professional there and then someone else coming in? And then on the other hand as well, were you ever the teacher's pet, the coach's pet then in the change room like that, or were there those sort of characters?
I suppose the thing with a Rob Penny coming in is you're the young bull then, you're so hungry, and new coaches coming in. I look at Clayton now at Munster, and look at Nathan Coughlin, how he did against Leinster. They want to see those young players as the future of the club. When we came in, he was looking towards youngsters. So a good coach will always try and look to the future as well. Obviously, Craig and Patsy are doing really well as well. And, but they want to see, like Brian Gleeson, Ruan Quinn, they want to see these players breaking through. And I'm sure it's somewhere in their contracts, the more players they bring through, the little top-ups they get. But my relationship with Rob was brilliant. He was, as I said there, I think Clayton is from that ethos as well. Like Rob, I just read up on him before he came in. He was supposed to be an unbelievably tough forward playing. And he was actually, when he was, he's the most positive person you'd ever meet. Like nearly, I'm quite a positive person as well. And you never hear him, complain or anything like that. But apparently he was different. He used to be very tough, apparently, on younger players. And I think he's evolved his coaching over the years. And I actually met up with him at the 2019 World Cup, and we chatted about it, and it was great. Sad time I'd shoot him the odd message on Instagram, just see how he's getting on. But he was really a brilliant person, I thought, and a brilliant coach. I thought if we had another little bit of time with him, and I was delighted to see that he won Silverware last year. He got a bit vindicated. We did that game plan, the kind of 2-4-2, and we're flying it. We played with 2 Hurling Cup semi-finals. Narrowly lost to Toulon, Claremont, and we were stretching teams. He was encouraging forwards to see space, second rows, props in the middle. And I'm even looking over there, he had a rug. He's bringing us all in. He'd put a rug out on the floor, get your number, with all of these little kind of characters. And for every play, you'd have to see where you were. But he would always be encouraging. He was nearly the first person that brought in scanning, looking up, seeing space, and out the back passes. And before we would have been very much, under Tony or Declan, and I think just the Irish model in general, even chatting to older players, was always around the corner, try and beat them with fitness. Whereas Rob was conserve your energy when you have it, then manipulate defences, see where the space is. If they're in tight, the out the back player is calling for it. And everyone's looking up and listening and communicating. And I think that was way ahead of his time. Like, that was 2012. When you go back to it, I know you hear him all now scanning and that, but he really was a deep thinker of the game and very much ahead of his time.
What were those French teams like? You mentioned they're losing to the likes of Toulon and Clermont. They were really in their peak of their powers probably back then.
Oh, sure, that Toulon team was
the money team, wasn't it?
the money team. Yeah, just should have put in the transfer request after the game. No, they were you had Johnny Wilkinson. You had who was ice scrum against Carl Heyman. They had
Armitage.
They had like it was just littered with names everywhere. And we lost. I remember we got a penalty. And the thing with them French teams was kind of if you can, stay with them for 50, 60 minutes, and under Rob's game plan, it was very hard to defend against us because we used to play width to width, and then when we see holes, we go through it, and there was little kicks over the top, and so we were with him for 60, 65 minutes. I actually remember looking over at Paulie at one stage. I don't know if you remember this in the game. I was like, we have him here, and we got a penalty from a scrum about 60 minutes to go, and I think Keats missed the kick, and if we got that, it was to go a point ahead. We missed it, and they ended up, I think, winning by a score. And the year after, we played Clermont, and same thing. It was a Casey Lalala maybe chipped through, and if Jonesy had just got it down. But look, you can always look back. They're fine margins in games, but they were two Heineken Cup semi-finals against two big teams in Europe at the time. That was a team in Clermont that were on that run that hadn't been beaten in so many years at home. So that was an exciting time to be involved.
How would you get Dave Kilcoyne fired up for a European semi-final like that? Are you someone who wants a bit of fire in the belly, aggression out the blocks, or what really got you going for them?
Yeah, and I know it sounds, everyone's different. Like you hear, people so nervous. I used to not get, obviously my first game, a couple of games I remember with Munster, I was very nervous. I think Scarlet's away could have been my first start, and you're wondering, are you able for the pace? Then you are. Then you're playing Heineken Cup, and I remember before the South Africa game in 2012, my first Hurling appearance. You're obviously very nervous, but as the years went on, my mindset's very much different than anyone else's. So don't be quoting young players. Don't be quoting them up. But my mindset was, I'd be more nervous that I wouldn't get enough ball, or I wouldn't get enough, big impacts in the game. I was going out every time to try and stand out in the game. That was always. I never wanted to be one of these players that just blended in, and it was always for the right reason. I wanted to make a big hit for the team. I wanted to make a big carry for the team, because ultimately it comes down to, it's a collision sport. You can butter it up any way you want, but unless Ireland have big ball carriers or big hitters, or same with Munster, you just don't win. You can't compete. But the more of them you have, and the more contacts you win, you free up space for other people, and that's the hard thing to do. People think, oh, he wants to carry again. I love those players. I love, you look at Josh at the moment, he's flying around the corner, punching holes. But people who want the ball, they think it's because they know that they can get over the gain line. The team are going back. It's making room for other players, and that's, you've the team on the back foot. But they're the hard carries to make. It's putting your head in a horrible place. You get injured. You get, that's where you've two fellas lining you up. But they're. I always admired that type of player.
What were you like even at breakdowns and I suppose scrum time up against opposing number threes? And did you change? Were you much of a talker with that, the mental warfare side of things?
Tell you a funny story. I was doing a chat the other day with Martin O'Neill was over doing a chat, and myself and Paul Galvin were guest speakers as well at it, and I saw Mike Ross in the crowd, and I'd actually met him out on the Saturday, and we were just
Instagram story,
on the Instagram. Yeah, I hadn't seen him in a long time, and we were chatting away, and we were just chatting. I got two yellow cards over my whole career, and one was in that Leinster game. I think it could have been 2013, 2014. Mike was probably pushing on, and I was just coming on the scene, and I was going at him at the scrum, and we were going at each other, and Nigel Owens was reffing, and he comes over, and 2 or 3 scrums it hit, and we were really going at each other now, and we were having a little battle over the years, first couple of years coming on, especially the Irish camp and scrums, and
what are little battles?
You're wanting to get the upper hand. You're flying off the line on the set call, and back then it was crouch, touch, pause, engage, and there were bigger hits, and but now this was going on now, and we were getting in each other's faces, and Nigel Owens then came over and looked at the two of us. He goes, next scrum that goes down, I'm yellow card the two-y. And Mike told me this. I only vaguely remember it. He looked at me and kind of like, all right, like, the gentleman's agreement here, you keep it up, I'll keep it up. And I remember it's just like, you're going in the second round, you're like, all right, rather than ripping him into you, you're kind of, right, here, ease off a little bit here, otherwise I'm gone. But subsequently then I got yellow carded about 20 minutes later. So, but that was, I think, my first yellow card for in a long time.
Because I think obviously at scrum time you hear more with the refs' mics being picked up. Like I remember one that springs to my head is like Dylan Hartley. You'd often hear, him being picked up on referees' mics and stuff as well. Was there other teams or nations you would have played against that you knew would be chirping at you, them first couple of scrums for a big test match or a big European clash as well?
The only one that springs to mind, I remember we played Sarries, Razzie was coaching, and Sarries were renowned for that. You'd make a mistake and knock on, and it'd all be hootering and hollering, and that. Look, I never paid attention to any of that kind of stuff. You're in the moment there. If that drives their energy, fair enough. I think I watched that South Africa documentary, Chasing the Sun, and you hear Bongi and Ox. I think they were saying it's fake noise, like, and a lot of that is it's a lot of hootering and hollering, and at the end of the day you still have to get up and scrum and you still have to carry. So
you mentioned Mike Ross obviously there, and that I want to maybe go into that Leinster rivalry a bit more, because I suppose you growing up watching Munster, it was always Munster having the upper hand on Leinster sides, and then I suppose probably throughout the main part of your career it was Leinster that were dominating on a European and on an interprovincial front as well a lot of the time as well. That rivalry must be massive when you're involved in it. Massive,
yeah, and I think it's brilliant for the country. I think everyone looks forward to them games. The Stevens Day games always a massive one in Thomond Park. I used to like it because I could only have one serving of the mother's prawn cocktail, and but no, it was always a massive rivalry, has been over the years. And just, I was actually at the game recently in Croke Park. I was actually sitting behind this Leinster supporter, decked out in the full gear, brown Thomas bag in hand, pint of Heineken, and he was you're stereotypical now. And one of us gave away a penalty, and I think it was harmless enough, one kind of hands in the ruck, and he was like, "We're at it all game, ref." And honestly, I would say for the next 40 minutes, I just was screaming in his ear. I actually think he left early. I must apologise to that man. But it's weird when you get on the other end. As I said, I was lucky enough to get to this age. It was time for me. I broke my shoulder after the World Cup, and then when I got back, I'd snapped my Achilles. So it was always time for me for a change. I thought about an early return after the World Cup, and then I said I'd do one more year and try and get that body right. And then when I did that, so I think contentment. So when you're ready for it, when you're ready for change, it's easy. I think back to someone like a Dan Leavy, who I'm great friends with. You're talking about characters. There's a bloody character. Must get him on actually.
Yeah, Dan, if you're listening, we'll get you in.
Yeah. We could be airing from Mountjoy after it, but. No, he was a brilliant character, unbelievable player, unbelievable mindset. I'll tell you a couple of funny stories. Okay, so about Dan, first of all, a player who had everything in front of him in terms of, like, he's probably one of the best sevens. You've Sean O'Brien, Wally, him, obviously now Josh and them, come on, but at the time he was unbelievable. I think he had a stat there for a while. I think he played 11 games for Ireland. I think he won all 11.
Yeah, he's the only Irish player to win every game.
And I think he'd a bit of a mindset, that I had. He was always supremely confident. Or we had a camp up in Galway before, and Joe Schmidt was in at the time. And it was when we played the 20s, and you go in and there was 3 questions everyone had to think about and ask after. So it was like, what are you going to bring to the team, what you need to work on, and something else. So it was like going into Alan Sugar, the boardroom, in here to the apprentice. So you've Joe in the middle, I think you've Faz, Fiki, Les Kiss, all circle around, and Joe's like the Pope inside anyway, and he's like, oh, what are you going to work on, Dan? And Dan was like, oh, I'm pretty much the complete 7, and Joe went, fuck, no. And by all accounts, he threw the pen off him, and like Dan was like this getting out of the room, but everyone had Joe was very much a different type of coach. He's I suppose his system, and he didn't want players. It was more about the system, I think, than focusing on player strengths, which every coaching philosophy is different. Wouldn't be the one I would have most enjoyed training under. I would love like the Faz or a Razzie who are, bring your unique selling point to the team, within the team, and express yourself and be yourself. And but yeah, Dan was very much like his own man. He'd go out. He was an animal wrecking ball. But when we're getting back to, if you're, I got to that age, whereas I look at someone like Dan, who cut down at such a young age, and so much, I suppose, unlived potential. And I hate saying that because he lived up to his massive potential, but he could have been, playing for years at that level. So I've no reason to ever, look back with, in any way, bad or harsh feeling. For me, it was time, and from that, I'm very grateful.
So yeah, Dan, obviously so much potential, and so unfortunate the way it ended. And I suppose for you, got to somewhat end on your own terms, despite, I think you said in the first episode, lying in a heap in the Kingspan Stadium.
Yeah, lying in a heap in Ravenhill probably isn't on your own terms, but I suppose in your own mental terms, head-wise it was. And before we move on from Dan, I must tell a funny story. We're talking about mindset and stuff, and I'd be great friends with James Ryan Cheese, to call him, and that's kind of how I got really good friends with Dan. The three of us were in a bit WhatsApp group for years, and we used to go for food and stuff. The two Michaels boys and a lad from Ardscoil. I know, not a great mix, but it worked. James was telling me it was before the Six Nations in 2018 Grand Slam game, I think, and James was calling the line out, and it was his biggest game of his life now, to win a Grand Slam over in England. Young fella from, just broken through, line out, and James would be a bit of a nervous character before the games. He cares so much, and he's prepared so much, and he was nearly, I think he was getting sick, he said, before the game with nerves, which is very normal for people. And he told me Dan just came up to him and he goes, "Jeez, the English look tiny." And he was looking at jersey, he goes, "I feel massive in this jersey." And she was just like, get away from me, I can't deal with you now. And that just shows you the mindset, the different mindsets in the game. You've people from all different backgrounds, different provinces, but the different mindsets hilarious. You've one fella getting sick with nerves, that can he remember the calls, and you've another fella going over saying that the XL jersey is tightening him, and he's looking over at Billy Van Pol and these lads and thinking they're tiny. That just shows you Dan's mindset. Everyone's probably tiny compared to Dan, but it worked for Dan. Dan walked on the pitch with supreme confidence, and that's how he played his best. He walked out there like he was the best, and he lived up to James probably. He probably gets his confidence from being so prepared for the weekend and going out and executing. There's obviously both, like they both do both. Dan would be doing the same, but it's finding, I think, the prep and the execution that suits your mindset, and they're just two very different ways of looking at the game.
You mentioned there with the different characters as well, and with your relationship with the two lads, and I suppose one thing that rugby's known for is the pranking culture as well, the initiations, the earning your stripes as well. There must have been some good crack behind the scenes during those years.
There was loads of good. Jesus, looking back, there's so many pranksters. I was with Dennis Fogarty actually the weekends. He's one that springs to mind. We were over in Chicago. Actually, another funny one for you. We were over in Chicago, and Pete, he's hanging around with all the A-list celebrities these days. So we went into the box anyway, and he was like, Shane Lowry was there. And I'm a huge fan of Shane. Obviously, any Irish fella doing so well, I'm a big fan of. But went over to Shane. He was like, "Oh, this is Dave Kilcoyne." We sat down beside each other. I was like, "Oh, I know who this is." And I was like, "Oh," and he's like, "Yeah, we met about 12 years ago." He's like, "I'm 38 now. You must be close enough." I was like, "Yeah, 36." And he was like, "We met about 12 years ago inside in Crystal." I was like, "All right." He was like, "Yeah, I was sitting around the table with all my friends, and you just walked over, took the bottle of vodka off my table, and walked away. And I was like, yeah, that sounds like me. All right, Shane, that was definitely me, I'd say. So I said, I owe you a drink, kid. So tell him if he's listening, I still owe him that drink.
Shane Lowry, yeah. You have a debt to pay to Shane Lowry.
A debt to pay now, yeah, exactly. I think I was slagging him for the rest of the night then about the 3-foot putt. Said my mother would have made that, and he's getting all these plaudits. No, but what he did was unreal, obviously. But he's a great character. He was a lovely fellow. We had a great time over there. But sorry, we're talking about Dennis Fogarty and pranksters. I'm not going to mention the name now because I wouldn't like to insult someone, but someone recently, back in, this was 2012, maybe 2011, we were only chatting about the story in America. They got going through a divorce, or they just recently broke up anyway. Went into training the following day. I think Axel could have been coaching, and Fox comes in a wedding dress. So the lads organise a fake wedding. Now your man, bear in mind, just kicked out of the house or gone from the home anyway, comes in and we're having a fake wedding inside. And if you did that nowadays, as lads, you nearly get a mental health week for if you've trouble in the relationship. And that just shows you, I suppose, the crack back then was probably a bit extreme, but probably wouldn't get away with it nowadays. But he was a big prankster, great man. Only played a couple of seasons with him. Who else would have been good? I was probably up there as one of the biggest pranksters as well, I must say. I must confess here. I remember I just broke on in around the 2011, 2012 mark, and when you're in college, all your friends are going out and their Tuesday and their Thursday nights out now, and should we be training during the week and have games the weekend? But I was so jealous of lads going out. You're still young fellas at the same time. Yeah. You're still a 22-year-old. You're no different just because you're playing with Munster or in Ireland at a young age. Doesn't make you any different. You still want to be having a crack. And so they used to have this big week in college. I'm sure you've been there, kid. College Court, the big week down there. It's a big week in the college calendar. Everyone from around the country goes down there. So I couldn't go out, obviously. We were training the following day, and I just got a sponsored car from Lions of Limerick, I think, a black Volvo, looked like a real detective car. And I had a friend who was a detective, whose dad was a detective at the time, and he had a lot of Garda uniforms in there. So my mind gets racing anyway. I was like, well, I can't go out. So went down to Maplin, bought the fake blue light for the car, called out to my friend's house, collected Felix Jones, myself, Barry O'Mahony, could have been JJ Hanron maybe, all dressed up anyways, guards. If I can't go into College Court drinking, I may as well go in there anyway. I'll go in undercover. So get the car anyway, collect all the lads, dress up. I had the Garda hat on, I had the big jacket overall, I had it up to here. Just pull over anyway, I'd see young group lads or girls drinking, pull over, lights on, woo, 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 in. And then I'm good at improv, so I was like, you drinking? They were like, yeah. I was like, you can't be drinking in the street, pour that out. Start pouring it out anyway. I'd be over, name, ID, just good looking, I could be like, number, take that back. Anyway, I was getting bolder and bolder, and he's getting more and more power hungry. You can see now how these dictators become. So then I started going over, you'd see lads with cases of beer. I'd be like, lads can't be walking around the streets with drink. Pop the boot there, throw that in. So bad fuckers. Oh yeah, terrible. Should have 21, 22. And so then it started getting more and more outrageous. We were like, okay, this is nearly too easy. So then it was getting more outrageous. I was pulling up, ripping in, flying the car in, house party, kick in into the door, knock in, rip the music out of the wall. Right, lads, everyone out. And I'll never forget, there was one poor lad. I saw him just getting out of a car. He was only a young fella, and he must have had a few pints, I'd say, if he's down in College Court. So flew in anyway, slammed on the brakes, lights on, and say you're him. It's like, where are you coming from? And he was like, I could tell he was nervous. Like, were you drinking? And he was like, no. I was like, were you drinking? He's like, no. I was like, were you drinking? I was like, if I find out you're drinking, I'm going to do you. And I'm going to give you one chance now. Were you drinking? He's like, yeah. I we looked over at the tax and insurance. I hadn't a clue. Anyway, I was looking over. No tax either. No. And I was like, card, name. What are you doing? Business studies. Where are you from? Kerry. I was like, just your lucky day, kid, go in there. If I catch you on the roads again, you'll be done. Enjoy your night now. Don't worry about this.
I'd say his heart.
Yeah, but look, you create you ran from a bad moment to a good place. So I made his night, really. I hope if he's listening to this again, we apologise. I owe you a drink as well, you and Shane Lowry.
Yeah, you're quite the bar tab here now after this, yeah.
Yeah, so, then, geez, the story. All right, so then, obviously we got reported for this, lads. We're probably copping on. So we're driving out then, about to go home, training, it's about 11 o'clock the following day. Two big paddy wagons come in anyway, lights on, 2 detective cars, proper lights now, not my Maplin yoke that barely spun. In, vroom, surrounded the car, someone's talking through a mic, turn off the ignition, put the keys on the roof. So I'm like, oh Jesus, how are we going to get out of this one? So I'm looking over at Jonesy and Baz, like, oh my God. So I'm keys up on the roof, guard comes over them with the light. He looks at me and he looks in at Jonesy and he was like, lads, he's serious. And I was like, sorry, guard. I was only messing. All the lads were out. It was college week. I was like, I haven't got a college. I didn't get to go on the college nights out, so trying to entertain ourselves. I was like, sorry about that. And he was like, open the boot. And he said, Barry O'Mahon, he was a good few years older at one stage, and pulls out his ID and he goes, looks at the other guards, goes, "This fucking he's just nearly 28." Barry's just like this in the front seat, and then he goes, pop the boot, and I had a lot of gear in the boot, and I pulled out these jerseys. He's like, that I'm keeping that. I was like, kid, you can keep whatever you want out of that. Take that. I was like, take that. That's for the whole station inside. But then we went in the following day and we were playing Leinster. You're talking about the Leinster rivalry. We went in, Axel was coaching. We put all our notebooks and pads. So filling out the following day, getting ready for the game. So I'm opening, you're supposed to be like, could be line out Maldi. I open book, Sean, 21, Kerry, drink driving, tax. I had all these numbers still in the odds. So I was like, just rip this page out and put that in the pocket just in case it got out. But yeah, that was they were the kind of silly pranks we used to do when we were young. Though, yeah. You wouldn't get away with it nowadays. There was no camera phones really back then.
Yeah, you'd be straight up with someone's Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. That, so the phones have killed the crack a bit. Not that you should be doing that if anyone's listening, but that were simpler times.
Let's chat some of your biggest tournaments and the ones to stand out for you. Maybe we'll work our way back a bit. We'll go from the big one that still is somehow in everyone's mind. It's over 2 years ago now, but it's the 2023 Rugby World Cup. And such a competition of such highs and then ending obviously in such lows. Obviously had the win over the Springboks in the group stage and then the defeat at the hands of the All Blacks. You mentioned going into that World Cup as number one. Do you remember the lead into that? And do you remember being picked and selected? You obviously would have fancied yourself from the amount of game time you would have had that year.
Yeah, I do remember it vividly. It's unfortunately, I remember it vividly. I say we all remember it vividly. I think it's one that, with the players, I'd say probably, it'll take a long, I don't know, do you ever get over it fully? And I think the country probably, I see them still talking about the next World Cup and all this already, and they're still referring back to the last one. See, I think what you had there, right, we'd won the Grand Slam, and I remember going into camp, Faz used to have the date of the South African game up, and I think that was, we were targeting that game subconsciously in the back of the mind the whole time. This is even pre the Six Nations, because it was such, obviously the World Cup was massively in your mind at the time, and then you get there, you get a bit of momentum, and then the South African game, then we beat South Africa, and you're like, I remember sitting in the dressing room, it was like, oh my God, it's like weight of the world off our shoulders. And I was saying there, I don't get nervous for games. That was the most nervous I've ever been in a game coming on, because that game was the atmosphere. I've never played in a game like it. The atmosphere was insane at it. It was so close. One mistake could have cost, and it's such big stakes. You're costing. This is the whole country's in behind this, and you really felt like this. We've the weight of the nation on our shoulders here in this game. I think everyone felt it, no matter how mindfulness you would have done. Everyone felt it. I think when we eventually got that win, as I said, that I actually went in, this just shows you what Razzy's thinking the weekend. I remember, because I was very close to Razzy, I had massive respect for him. One of the best coaches. Him and Faz are just league of their own. And I went into the dressing room after it. Damien Landa would have been with us and Orgy, and I just wanted to say hello to Razzie. He made a massive mark on me and on our team, and I remember him looking at me and goes, "Oh, we might see you in the final." He knew, he had that belief in him. He never questioned it. But that, you saw the thing on Chasing the Sun, how he addressed the team after that Hurling game. But I think then we went in and played New Zealand, and you lose that game. Fine margins. I know, like that inside tackle, and Josh makes them 99 out of 100 times. It was just a small thing, but that happens in every game. They're just, you can pick up any small thing on a game. If Ronan got that ball down, they're small little margins. If I had done something, if we'd all done, you can look back with. But that's sport. That's the way it is. But it was. I think we had a perfect blend of we just won a Grand Slam. Confidence was high. Johnny was still really at the peak of his powers. You had the conductor there, bossing the team. Everyone was in behind him. Brilliant captain. You had a great core of experienced players, and you really good group of younger players coming through. And it was always like the perfect mix. And you have that. And it's very hard to do, to time it every 4 years, where you have the conductor, you have the experience, you have the young guns, you have the coaching staff and the people he's around him. You have it in France that everyone can go over. It was like the stars aligned, but look, unfortunately it didn't align enough for us, and we got an eclipse.
The only thing I think that was maybe spoke about afterwards was almost the amount of game time perhaps 15, 16, 17 players might have had up to that All Blacks game. I remember there wasn't players maybe rested. Was it the Tonga game, and was it Romania? It was still quite strong teams. Was that a feeling amongst?
Yeah,
did you feel like you could have got more?
One thing
starts?
I'd never question Faz's. People always question his selections and like, does he need to blood players in? And I'm actually just after finished reading his book, I think, look, I've been around him long enough. I think 99 out of 100 times he always gets it right. I wouldn't question it if he felt that was the. And you can always look back. You can always look back, and like hindsight is brilliant. Like, if maybe Johnny had been more rested, we brought Jack on earlier, but then just say Jack does come on and he's just kind of really fresh in the scene, and he's a kick 30 metres out and he hits it wide. First of all, what's that do for his confidence? What does it do for the country? First of all, then you would have backed Johnny always to get it. So look, I think he makes the best decision with the available information you have at the time. I think that's what all great coaches do, and I think he's shown time and time again that he generally gets it right. So I wouldn't question that on it. And look, there's always going to be questions, but I wouldn't question that on it.
You said you were nervous for the South Africa game. Did you enjoy the whole experience? So is like when you're there, when you're in camp, pre-tournament starting, do you enjoy those days?
That was the best, I would say, however many 6-8 weeks of our lives. I think everyone, even going into camp, Faz runs such a brilliant camp. He gets it so right. Me and John Foggs' job every morning was, or Tuesday mornings, I don't know what it was now, we'd have to come up with some games to get the lads going in the morning, like hype games, and we used to have great crack. We worked unbelievably hard. He assembled brilliant coaches that all got on really well, and they were experts in their field. And it works so well. Paulie's this unbelievable attention to detail, what you want around your line out, your maul. Also gets the crack as well. He's been there, done it. John then, Fogarty, Dennis's brother, brilliant person, human, like Dennis is, exudes like one of these people you just want to be around, walks into room, great crack, always still brilliant at his job. And then Faz, unbelievably ruthless, unbelievably fair, incredible leader. All the lads that died from, I would have died from there in the day. Anyone would have. So it was a brilliant pre-World Cup camp with unbelievable crack. It was done so well. I don't think we would have done anything different. Our days off were our days off. He lets you enjoy your downtime. He wants the players to be on him. He'd be on to me. Make sure you have something organised now for the lads after the game, or could be bringing them in and gone up slagging lads at the bus. He used to love me up at the front of the bus slagging lads, and social committee. He'd take it as serious as the game. He took everything, was just ran right. Not strict, ran right. You know, yeah.
Who are you rooming with in France?
I room with Craig, I know, for a lot of towards the latter end of my career. A good bit. I think we had a lot of our own room over there, and but Craig towards Sean Cronin was my roommate and Donegal Ryan when I first started out, and then Sean Cronin for the bulk of it, and Craig Casey then towards the end of it were my kind of three roommates over the years.
Okay. So Sean Cronin would have been World Cup before 2019 or 2019,
yeah. The bomb squad, the original bomb squad, the Bosch brothers.
There must have been a big difference, I suppose, in camp from 2023 under Andy to 2019 under Joe. Very different environments.
100%, totally different. Chalk and cheese. And similar, yeah, chalk and cheese. Under Joe, I found it anyway. It was very much like lads. I don't think felt they were themselves. There it was very much authoritarian kind of vibe in there. You know, these holier than thou interviews you see after the matches. That's not how he carries on. You know, that wouldn't have been his demeanour inside, and that I think rubbed off on the players in an awful way. I'm just speaking my mind here, and I know if you interviewed 99% of the players, they would say the same. There was a couple of players I know who would have really liked that environment, but the vast majority did not really enjoy the environment. They found it very stressful, very. Whereas under Faz, they're, I think, encouraged to be themselves. More importantly, at the end of the day, they're human beings. They're young men. You got to coach them as young men, not and let them figure it out themselves.
In what sort of way would you maybe be not allowed to be yourself, or not maybe be like socialised as much as 23? And
look, I don't want to be. Joe I have massive respect for what he did. He for what he won and everything, and I'm not one of these lads that would be going out slaying people or any of that. But I'll give you an example here. So look at Brazzy. He's got the bomb squad. He wants his squad to come on and beat a bomb. He wants you to come on and obliterate the team and to come on. The lads are wrecked. He wants you to come on, make a difference, be the difference. These stains, it's mad. They still live with me. I can still have them written them, in notebooks over the years. Razzie had one, if it's to be, it's up to me. Faz, when he gets lads on, he wants them to make a difference. You make an impact on the game. Whereas with Joe, I felt it was more meek. It was like his terminology was fit in first, and it was nearly the system, fit into the system, don't make. Now look, he obviously, it works, and it's just, again, this is my personal opinion. It's not the way I would coach a team or how I liked it to be coached. I'll tell you another funny one about Sean Cronin. So there was a bit of tension, I think, with me and Joe kind of gone into over the years, kind of just things like that. Like if I saw a gap, I'd probably go for it, but sometimes, he'd rather maybe stick to the system or something like that anyway. And yeah, it's control. I felt if he needed to control everything, and even with the staff, I know, it would have been tough on the staff in that environment.
So not just demands of players.
No, massively. I know there's a lot of staff who probably found it very difficult to work in there. A lot of them. One I was talking to recently. But under Faz, they absolutely love it in there. But I remember this is building for a while anyway. I remember I made a big, massive line break before against Japan. This is the year 2018, and placed the ball back, and but it was like 30 or 40 metre line break, and he was saying, what are you doing here? And we still scored. I think Dan actually got to try off, picked and went. But rather than comment on the line break, or prop making a big line break up the thing, none of that ever bothered me, and I would never ever have showed that emotion. I think that's another thing. I think players would have been gone into their shell. I would always just smile away, work away, do my own thing. Never been disrespectful, got on with my job, work harder next time, take the learnings and go. That's all you can do, even though I didn't agree with it. But anyway, we got to the World Cup, and Joe would have these meetings with the subs the subs meeting before Japan. who was in it, myself, Nugget, were rooming together, and we were great friends. Went to Ardscoil together, Limerick men, and who else? Like Joey Carberry in there, Luke McGrath, another cousin of mine actually. We had a subs meeting anyway, and Joe would go around and everyone would give the same uniform answer, like, "Oh, I'm going to fit in first." I think Ty could have been on the bench that day, or Hindi, or Luke McGrath was there, Joey, Rhys Ruddock, I think. And people are going around with Joey, "Oh, I'm going to fit in first, I'm going to..." Okay, and I tipped Nugget anyway before it. I kind of got enough of this now, and I was like, "Oh, killer, what are you going to do when you come on?" I was like, "I'm just going to fly out of the line and smash someone, and I'm going to get a ball and run over someone and make a massive impact on the game and try and..." And he went, "Fuck, no, killer, that's exactly not what we're going to do." But my answer in my head was right, and I know if you're going through, I guarantee you, Faz, if you asked him now to one of the subs or Razzie, if Razzie the weekend, who's on the bench from RG, what are you going to do the weekend? "I'm going to come on, I'm going to destroy a breakdown, I'm going to try smash someone, I'm going to try end someone in a carry." That's what they want to hear. They're the people I gravitate towards.
Yeah.
That's I didn't want these meek answers. "I'm going to blend in, I'm going to fit in first." It was never for me. And before he asked me, I was tipping Nugget. I was like, "Watch this now," because I was like, it's coming up to the quarter final here at the World Cup. I actually can't be dropped or sent home at this stage. There is no one else. So I was like, look, Nugget was honestly in stitches. I remember when we walked out of it, he was like, "Oh, killer, oh my God." He was like that, go back to that. But we laughed about it for the rest of the camp. But they were, look, I needed it. It was a bit of crack. It was, I'd get a bit of reaction out of him.
Was there a sense of change room gone by that All Blacks game? Like, if it was you, there might have been a couple of others sensing that they weren't agreeing with methods. Do you think that there might have been that underlying a little?
Yeah, a little bit. Definitely. I would think. Yeah, I just think it was as I said there. I think it's got a short shelf life, and I think I think it was done. I think it was time for change.
Another big one of your achievements, and one, don't want to put words in your mouth, that I imagine is really up the top, is that URC win a couple of years ago with Munster.
Yeah, I was lucky enough to be involved in 2011. And I suppose you think then that was my first break in a couple of games, and you get a medal at the end of the year, and we got a free MacBook off. Who was that? I know that's so far they're paying us in MacBooks back then. We got a free MacBook off that Apple store or whatever in Limerick. But you're thinking like, oh, this is normal now. Then they're going to be winning these every year. This is kind of they won in 06, 08. Now you're after winning the Magners League. You're just broken on, and then we had a good few years where we were close thereabouts, and you still had Paulie and Rog around, and Doug Howlett, the types of character, and Casey, and we were hitting semi-finals, and we're still going really well, and made a URC final as well under Axel with Glasgow that I felt we should have. That's a game you look back, there's certain games I think we really left behind us, that game, and I know I read an interview there with Razzie recently, and one game he regrets losing was that Scarlets game, the URC final here. We'd lost to Saris in the semi in the Heineken, and we were in a great place under Razzie, and then we just didn't perform in the final one of them days, and I think it still irks him. He's a winner, same as Razzie, or same as Faz, they're both winners, and that's one game that just for whatever, Steph Evans I think got a hat-trick on it. Pete was they isolated Pete on the wing, but they'd obviously done their homework, and whatever reason they managed to get 3 tries down that same touchline. They just caught us off guard. One of them days you're chasing a game, left it behind us, but then to actually going on and towards the tail end of your career, get that URC win for the club was brilliant.
Must have been amazing, because nobody would have been back in Munster that year really in the URC.
No, and look,
South African teams. And was it the first year or two of the South Africans
in?
joining?
And you look at, like, I know Murray was giving out about Raz or Wig in his book, Graham Roundtree, and at the end of the day, he's still won URC from Munster. You know what I mean? You got to credit where credit's due, and look, there's no one without their faults, and but I still think there has to be massive credit due to him for that. And the club, was brilliant. Got Silverware back, hadn't been there in a long time, and to be involved in that towards the tail end was brilliant. And now I'm looking on, and after being in that, I'm a massive, before I ever played, I was a massive Munster supporter. I'll convert you, kid. I'll bring you up a Munster jersey next time here. That ball is for you as well, the Munster one. Yeah. The big Munster boy is coming in the media here now. We're taking over. You've had it long enough up here. But to see, the start they've had this year and what Clayton's done down below, it's really encouraging. They're ex-Copper New Zealander, hard edge forward. You Mike Prendergast, Mossy, Alex Coddington, brilliant line-out coach. Sean Cronin, my old roommate.
You would have liked to play under
do another year. I might pack on the way.
Back row.
Will I go back in and get a few steaks and start bulking back up? No, I like my new body.
You're giving Craig Casey running.
I like my new body too much. No, I leave it to no. And you know what? I said it the other day. I think the likes of myself, Pete, Archie, them gone. I think it's a fresh start for the lads. Like for me, change is good for me at the time. I'm out of Limerick. I moved up to Dublin, started a new job, which I'm really enjoying. Change in everyone's life at certain junctures, and that can be with the club. Yeah, it was time for a change at Munster. It seems like a really, really competent man in, who's, again, I've just listened to, I know he's a man, I'll be chatting to lads all the time still, like, man, a few words. When he talks, everyone listens. He's got that aura, presence that, the best coaches have. Your Razzies, your Rob Penny, your Faz. They have a certain presence or aura when they walk in the room. Yeah, they're here. And he has that little bit of fear factor in there. Then you've this real core group of young players coming through. Whereas I think if Pete and other characters were there, players might still play a little bit within themselves because they're nearly afraid of what the older lads might say to them. Where now it's their team. It's a new chapter. It's a new dawn, I suppose, as to say. So I think that victory up in Croke Park is massive for the club. I think it was a bit of a turning point. Look, there's no getting carried away, and I don't all these kind of rubbish of Munster-Leinster, all that boys. For Ireland to be successful, we need a good Munster and a good Leinster. That's just the bottom. And the other province obviously going well, but look, I'm focused on Munster and Leinster here. You need them both going at each other. You need the games competitive. You need young lads coming through on the Irish team in both. And I think under Clayton now, and I just see this morning, signed Alatoa, good tight head. Mike Milner, has broken through there at loose head, going really well. I thought he was very unfortunate not to make the Irish squad, but then I was actually chatting to Dennis Fogarty recently, and we're just chatting about, I thought it might have been a little bit soon for Paddy McCarthy. No disrespect to Paddy, because he's just such a young man. That New Zealand game, just before it, I thought it, and then Faz starts him, and again, he got it so right. I thought he was excellent the weekend.
Good, wasn't he? Yeah.
So impressive. And he reminds me of that Joe build, really big, powerful unit, scrummages real square. And I was actually in that session that they were referring to about the 20s game. He was like a lunatic that game.
I actually need to ask you about that, Joe, because it's been something that's been spoke about 2 years ago, was it?
Yeah, I'm not sure what year. Yeah, it was a couple of years ago anyway. Senior team always play this big session against the 20s, always a big game, and it's level 2, like both lads have, I don't know, maybe the down week, but it's not full contact. But Paddy was getting the ball and barreling through fellas, but I looked at that and I was like, that's what I used to be like at that age, and I used to be always getting given out to by players, go down, but he doesn't want to go down. It's in his head. He wants to, he saw something, he wants to be carrying ball, he wants to, and I thought it was really refreshing to see. I thought,
because he was tight head then, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I looked at him, because I knew he trimmed up a little bit, and now I looked at him, he packed on massive size, didn't look out of place at all. I thought he was brilliant the weekend. I thought they found a real gem there, a young guy, him and Joe playing together. When you're playing with your brother anytime in the pitch, you're going to get more out of yourself. Yeah. You have two potential big power athletes coming through there, and it's and then I said you've Mike down below. Obviously you've Josh and Jez going well the last couple of years, but Mike is doing well down there now at the moment, and there's good competition there now. And then you've Alatoa coming in a tight head. Munster look, going back, you were answering both questions here with Munster and Leinster, they look really, really strong now. Brian Lees and Ruan Quinn, these young lads coming through with the likes of John Hodnett, Kendall and all the other lads that are there, Jack O'Donoghue, I think it's his best season in a long time. You know, and it just shows you, the thing with Jack, I think a fresh voice coming in with Clayton. And I hope Jack doesn't mind me saying this, you know, I think he was maybe potentially struggling would he been kept on last year, and all of a sudden he does, and it's like, you know, shackles are off. You know, he probably in his own head, I don't know, maybe I'm not going to play on that much longer. You look at him now and he's just like an absolute leader down there. I thought he was nearly the best player. I don't know who got man of the match, the Leinster game, was it? He was definitely right. He would have been up there. Yeah. And he looked a real leader out there. All the games, I think he's been brilliant.
I think very underrated. I think maybe not in Munster, but I think maybe across the rest of the provinces over his career.
Yeah. Well, and look, sometimes it's warranted, sometimes it's not. You know, maybe sometimes he wasn't getting enough starts. You know, now, but I just think the way he started this season, you know, I think he's been excellent. Until Ian Costello get a 2-year contract out from quick enough. Shout out Jack, I don't know, I want 10% of it. Joe made a point in it.
Pass it on to Shane Lowry.
Yeah, but exactly. I'll pass that on to Shane.
Dave, what a pleasure it's been. Our first solo one for the two of us, but we'll be back and we have some big guests on the way.
Sure, if they're this good, we might need any more guests. We might just do the two of us.
Exactly, yeah. Save a lot of time, but